and welcome to this Siebel CRM update deep dive with a repository upgrade. We are going here from a Siebel environment 22.11 to 23.7, which has a few interesting changes in the areas of both the MDE installer and the repository upgrade. So let's dive in. The first thing I do here is to verify that I actually have Siebel 22.11. So in any Siebel installation folder, you will find a Siebel_version.properties file, and it tells me that's Siebel 22.11. Okay, let's close this file, go to our installation directory. I've already extracted the 2 of 10 and 3 of 10 file, which is the binaries and the language packs of 23.7. And I shall navigate as usual to the install folder, run the setup batch file as administrator. So there's absolutely no change. If you watched previous videos, then that's the same concept here. You might want to use the timestamps and skip ahead to the real stuff, but maybe you want to stay around for quite a moment. So after choosing my SES home folder, keeping the default backup location, I'm prompted as usual for the post-install database option. So I choose execute, run it right away, and I will just enter those passwords. And make sure you, if you have language packs, always make sure you click the languages or control click if you have more than one here in this other languages box. Only then will the language be really selected. You can verify that. Well, and here's the new thing. So verifying the summary, but here's the new thing. Here it says, let's go back here. This is an update installation from a previous version. The Siebel application containers, that's the Tomcat servers, and servers, that's a gateway and Siebel servers, will be automatically started after installation is complete. Now, you might wonder, that's not really new. The MDE installer on Windows, it tended to actually start any existing service on that machine. Actually, it did before post-install database update was complete, so not really a good thing. And now Oracle changed that actually to work as it waits for post-install database setup. But you can also opt out of actually starting any services, so which I choose here. So please do not restart any services. I'll do it manually once this is done. So this is the new page in the MDE installer. It's called Service Manager, and you have a single checkbox here and some explanatory text. Once you click next, you're in the summary page. And here in the summary, as I mentioned, if you have any language packs, make sure that your languages appear here in the other languages parameter. Everything's fine, and so we're ready to click install. And of course that will take a while, so I'll pause the video and come back once something interesting happens. Okay, here we are at the stage where post-install database setup execution is started, so that's definitely interesting. You can verify that actually something's going on by going to Windows Task Manager, for instance, and seeing here siebdevcli at work. Importing, if with a little bit of luck, we can see it's doing a batch import of SIF files, which probably is the schema related tables and stuff. So it's hard at work here. Seems that I got all the passwords right and all the settings. So post-install database update is definitely running. But what I'm also interested is there positively no Siebel server starting. So let's see. No, siebdevcli is the only Siebel software currently running on this machine. So the servers keep silent, which is a good thing. So we've validated the feature. Okay, seems we have reached another milestone of this update from 22.11 to 23.7, and the post-installation database setup has completed successfully, and the SES folder is up to date. So click next here and close that. And of course, we are checking out things. Let's start with the services, which means we check out the application containers, which should have been regenerated on Windows. So here I can see the internal application container automatic is updated to the 9074, which is brought in with 23.7. The external one is still the old one. Several things happen here when the service is regenerated. It's set to automatic, which I don't want on this machine, so setting it to manual. It's not started, which is a difference to any MDE run before 23.7. I don't need to start it right away. But I want to inspect the memory settings. So what I do here is copy the path to executable, then open a command line, paste in the path, and amend the path, set RS to ES and Tomcat 9 to Tomcat 9W. So this gives you a nice user interface where you can click the Java tab and see that the memory pool settings have been set to the defaults, and that's not enough for a decent Siebel container. So I'll just multiply with 10 here. It's a training machine after all. Your mileage will vary on your test or even production machines. You need a lot more probably. So that's taken care of. So now we can run the setup file, the MDE, one more time for the AI. So let's run it for the AI. The restart service is here as well. Again, I don't want any services to start, so I uncheck the box, and there we go. And as before, we'll come back when something interesting happens. So actually nothing really interesting happened except that the installer finished successfully. So let's close it down and let's inspect the regenerated AI Tomcat, which is now on the correct version, set to automatic. So again, I'm going to set that back and make sure the memory settings are back to something useful. So we've seen that before, just a different Tomcat. Again, your settings will vary. Okay, and one more time for the installer, as we have to update Siebel tools as well, since it's present on this machine. So, and the Siebel tools installer also asks to restart services. I don't know which, but I don't want any to be restarted, so let's make sure. And then hit install. And again, we'll come back when this installer is finished. And that happened really quick. These installers are fairly fast. So Siebel tools updated, AI updated, Siebel server, gateway, SES installation updated, and the post-install database also ran. So let's check out the post-install database setup report. Something you should do, definitely save this file for later. So I always start here at these sections schema, so I can see that quite a lot of table changes were applied for 23.7. There's no manifest, OpenUI manifest that is, and some seed data was imported, one predefined query for the Web Tools feature, several Web Tools views for the favorites, predicus, the new attribute differences view, which we'll definitely check out, so stay tuned. Yeah, the new REST inbound data service view from 23.4 gives us the version number here, the responsibilities. So seems that everything is in order with the post-install database setup. We got the big green thing here on top as well. Okay, with that out of the way, let's prepare for the repository upgrade. So I'll start Siebel Tools because my server is not running. Okay, once Siebel Tools is started, let's go to Workspace Explorer, and there is already a folder int.ru, which I used for a previous repository upgrade. So the last repository upgrade applied here, we can check in the main branch. Yes, it was 22.11. So the repository upgrade will import anything 22.12, 23.1 through 23.7. That's like 8 releases. So it will be quite a lot of inserts happening through that repository upgrade. And there's a new feature, which the purpose of this video is to check out this feature, that allows developers to inspect what happened during the repository upgrade and take action if any conflicts arise. So that's the SIF Attribute Differences view in Web Tools. So to prepare for this demonstration, I will create a new integration workspace just for that special integration, for the special repository upgrade, and also mess, let's say, with some of the objects that are modified so we can see actually what conflicts can arise. So the preparation I've done is I've modified a standard workflow, which is going to be modified by the repository upgrade. This is the SISOM modify products and services process, part of the order management module, which got a major update in 22.12. And what I did is straightforward. I added a dummy custom business service. Just notice the method is missing here. And that doesn't do anything here, but it's a new workflow step. I redirected or reconnected that existing connector, changing it, and added a new connector. I also moved this edit asset selections box, so I changed the layout, and I changed an input argument to include the word custom and also the comment custom. So we will see what happens when the repository upgrade touches on this workflow process. So I'm going to deliver this quick change into the new version of main, and then we'll create the integration workspace of that main version. So this change is present in the current branch. So whatever you do, make sure that the integration workspace you're using for the repository upgrade sees the current development, so it's not like created on an old version of main where there would be no conflicts if you didn't change anything in an older version. So that's delivered. So now let's go to Workspace Explorer. Yeah, the change has arrived in main, and now let's create a new workspace based on main version 9, in my case, integration workspace. Let's call it RU237 for repository upgrade 23.7. Okay, that will take a short moment. We'll come back when it's done. And we are good with a fresh integration workspace. So now let's run repository upgrade. I just go to the Siebel server installation folder binaries, where the repository upgrade executable for Windows is waiting for me. I just run it without any input. So of course it fails, but it gives me also, of course, the arguments and the required arguments. So let's fill in the gaps. So the Sieb server or tools installation path, I use the Siebel server path, the table owner, the table owner username, which is the same, table owner password, the ODBC data source. So let's check out our ODBC system DSN, 32-bit data sources. You can create one or use any other which is valid Siebel data source with those registry settings. I choose install, Siebel install DSN. Should work fairly nice. The database platform is Oracle. The Siebel username is going to be sadmin and its password. The repository name defaults. The table spaces are both called Siebel in my environment. So it's the same workspace, same table space for index and tables. And we need the SSE role parameter and additional languages. We have a German language pack here. And -9, that's required since quite a few versions, is the name of that integration workspace that I just created for the purpose of this demo. So it will insert everything here. Okay, let's run this. And yeah, it starts off. And interestingly, it starts at 20.3, which I wasn't expecting. Was expecting 22.12. But anyway, it will import a lot of stuff, including 22.12. That's the schema is first, then followed by, well, not in that order, maybe manifest, seed data, and the repository changes. So if ever you're interested, by the way, while this is running, you can always inspect what's coming up to you by looking at the repository upgrade zip file. Now I copied this over to the downloads folder, but you find it in the Sieb server bin. So go to your Sieb server directory after updating, and you'll find there a current repository upgrade zip. I just open it from here. And it has folders for each release, including the latest release. And there's the seed files and schema files and repository SIF files. So that's all the repository content it's going to import using the repository import facility using siebdevcli, the merge option. So we're going to take a look in the log file later, and you will see exactly those calls. And these are regular SIF files. So whenever you're interested, what's in that SIF file, reading SIF files is not really fun. So you can go to Siebel Tools, open any editable workspace, really. And then go to Tools, Import from Archive. And I've already done this, so here extract that folder, go to the folder of that you want to inspect. It might be more than one, and import the repository SIF file. You will not actually complete the import. You just want to see the first window, which is the list of objects included in that SIF file, and keep the merge option, because that's what the repository upgrade does. And you can click next. It's not importing anything, so it gives you the preview and the conflicts. So whatever changes it will make, you will see here. And I repeat, do not complete the import here. Doesn't make any sense because repository upgrade will do it. But if you want to invest some time before you do the repository upgrade, you can do this without any harm and educate yourself about the content of each and every SIF file that you will have to accept, because that's like probably maybe 10 or 12 or more versions that you cover. And then for each object type, like the workflow process, the SIS OM, let's pick that same workflow process that I modified. So you can see the steps. For example, there's a list of steps, and some steps are not in the repository, as you can clearly see here. So they're new steps. So Oracle has added new steps. So for a list of new things, just sort by maybe repository, and you see, okay, there are 5 new steps in the workflow. And for any other step, you will see what happened inside the step. So the connector in this case has this update. The arguments. Okay, there seems to be a new argument coming in. So that's very similar to what we will see in the new view shortly. And it's working in any Siebel version and gives you a chance to understand the changes that come up. Of course, this will be a lot to digest, and you might want to have a more, let's say, easy to use window, because that's a hierarchical window, has its pros and cons. So you either have to wait until the repository upgrade finishes, or you have access to the new view in 23.7, which we'll see shortly. So for now, let's make sure to cancel out of here. Remember, don't import anything. And in that, let's refresh that. There will not be happening much yet. Oh, well, there I said it. It has created already an integration workspace underneath this manually created integration workspace. That's what repository upgrade does. It creates a new child integration workspace, and underneath that, it will import in a developer workspace, of course, all the SIF files that, well, it thinks it's missing. In my case, it thinks it's missing a lot of stuff, so it's already starting the repository import. Okay, and it will go from 20.3 all the way, which again, I didn't expect, but anyway, we will get 22.12, and we'll get anything higher than that until 23.7. We'll just need to wait it out, which benefit of the recorded video, I can pause here and come back when it's finished. Okay, this took a while since we were importing everything, but there is the important change in 23.7 and onwards. The repository upgrade process does not, like in previous versions, deliver the changes it has imported in the developer workspace, but it just stops. So it imports and it does not deliver anything or checkpoint for that. And there is even a message at the end of the process. It says here, please review web tools, archive, SIF Attribute Differences, and resolve any conflicts. Once done, click Apply Changes to apply your decisions. If you do not make any changes in the report, which is the SIF Attribute Differences view, all incoming configuration will be used. Once you checkpoint or version the workspace, the Apply Changes options will be disabled. So very important information. So since this is a very big repository upgrade, the biggest possible from 20.3 onwards, let's see from the start. So let's start with the log file. I will open the text log file first, because that's actually interesting. Here you see all individual command lines run, especially, for example, the preparation of the repository import. So that goes back to 20.3. That is where it copies all the SIF files into one folder. And then there's a big one, which, as you can see, took 1.5 hours on my machine here. The siebdevcli doing a batch import. So you can see that somewhere here, batch import, and using the merge option. And there's the folder name. So it generates that folder and puts everything in here. Yeah, there's a log file output, etc. So siebdevcli definitely importing stuff here, a lot of that. And then there's a data imp, probably C data or SQL running, additional SQL. Yeah. Okay, so you might want to learn a little bit more on the inner workings on the repository upgrade or post-install database setup by looking at these log files. And of course, there's an HTML report, which is probably very big because we spend so much time. And let's start with repository. And indeed, the sheer numbers here are mind-boggling. So there are 322 applets. We can't see inserted or updated, but probably there's a high number of new applets, but there are also some updated. 5 applications, updated probably. Business components, you name it, everything that has rank and order in the Siebel repository has been touched by Oracle in the past 3.5 years almost. And there's 151 workflow processes. Wow. So we have this example workflow, the SISOM Modify Products and Services process, which we will take a closer look. Okay, so that report allows us to see in great detail what happened. There's a new modified flag on the table, so lots of new tables and columns, of course, or modified columns. Manifest, since it was a big one, big update, we got all kinds of manifest data imported and all kinds of C data. So make sure to check all this out and analyze it with your team and take your time to digest that information if you do a repository upgrade that big. But we, of course, don't have that much time in this video, so we are aching to go to this new view in WebTools. So here I am logged into WebTools, and let's check out the workspaces. And there is our integration workspace. All right, notice that it has no content now. As of now, has nothing being delivered into it. Neither does the automatically generated integration workspace. And that's the new thing. The developer workspace is edit in progress, so it's still editable. And now in the archive menu, there's this new view, or the command that opens the view. But as you can see, it's inactive, so you have to actually open the developer workspace first. Okay. So now, if you go to the archive menu, the command is active. So let's click it. So that view opens, and it's a tree applet on the left. So let's collapse the Object Explorer maybe, and you see all object types by root object types, such as applet and so forth. And when you expand, you see each individual applet covered or actually touched by the SIF import. So all these applets were modified. And remember, there are hundreds of applets there. Also workflow processes. So you get a list first, and if you click an individual workflow process, you might not see much because that's the attribute difference on the property level. 4 properties on that object. So the workflow itself hasn't been changed, but if you go deeper, you will see workflow steps. And this step, for example, has changes. So it's likely a new step because, how can I tell? The name pre-existing, there was no name. Now there is a name. So there is no object without a name. So it's a new object. So that's a new workflow step. Another one, and this one has changes in the workflow step input output argument named CP rowset, which also has been added here. So nice example for workflow that has some stuff added. And of course, we don't really have the time to go through all this. And as you can see, there's no query, so finding an object requires some scrolling and expanding. And you're probably interested in a few objects that you know, standard objects that you have modified. And we know we have modified the SIS OM modify products and services process. Now, okay, can't really tell, maybe we should have run workflow cleanup. Well, we have 2, so let's check the first one. And this one has workflow steps. And yeah, edit as asset selections. That was the step I modified. The connector 2. And there's the branch connector. So that is a new connector, as it looks like. Again, no name pre-existed. Let's check out the other one. Okay, finally found what I was looking for. Remember, we changed the comments and the value of one workflow step IO argument. Use business object it was, and we can indeed see the pre-existing value, the value that was before the SIF import was custom, and the imported value will be, or is actually in this workspace, empty. There was no comment from Oracle. A classic case of not a real conflict, but let's say that comment is so important we want to keep it. Likewise, the value / search specification, where we have that custom string in there. And of course, Oracle doesn't do that, so the imported value will override that. The sequence changed as well, which is probably fine. So now comes the most important checkbox in this view, which is keep pre-existing value. Let's say we want to keep our custom comment, so we check the box, and we want to keep that value search specification, so we check the box as well. And so now you get the idea. You go through the tree, find the relevant objects, and then check the box if you want to keep the values. This does nothing but check a box, and it's saved in a table. I'm going to look at that table in a moment. You have to click Apply Changes first. Now, before I click Apply Changes, and Apply Changes means actually what it says on the tin, it will apply the changes. So in this case, it will change the imported value to the pre-existing value. And same for here. It will set the comment to custom. Now, before I click Apply Changes, I have opened this workflow in Siebel Tools, just to have a second window. And I've opened the same workspace, and I've opened the workflow. Now, we can also see our new business service step is detached. It's not connected. That connector goes by the name of, default connector, leading from count count selected rows. This one is the one that I modified, but the modification has been overwritten. So there's another thing we would need to find. And the edit asset selection step is here. Remember, I moved it, and now it's moved back to the original location or Oracle's location, and I'm fine with that, fine with the layout. And indeed, the use business object property doesn't have any comment, and the value doesn't include the custom word custom. Okay, so that's something. And now let's go back to Web Tools. And back in Web Tools, I managed to locate that connector. So under count selected rows, that's the step. There's the default connector, and that's actually the thing, default connector. And it says two-step name, custom business service, and the imported values get all asset lists. So that's overriding the connector. Let's try and check the flag here, and also for the layout, which will hopefully bring the connector back to its original state, pointing to my custom business service. Let's see how that works out. I haven't tried that one before. So with that, we have checked the flag on this connector. And let's just verify. Sorry, this one, and we have the use business object argument where we also check the flag. So 4 changes we don't accept at all. And now let's click the apply changes button. So clicking the apply changes button will apply the changes to the current workspace. So that's the developer workspace the repository upgrade has created. So it will actually go and change these values. So from a null imported value to the pre-existing value, back to the pre-existing value, so to speak. So this is one way of correcting the logical conflicts, let's call them that repository upgrade incurs. Another way, of course, is to use the information as what it is, data points and information, and to collect the information and then define an action plan for further development. So you, because with workflows, they're complex objects, and you might not just be happy with reverting one value. You might just want to redesign the whole workflow, incorporate Oracle's changes, incorporate your changes, etc. So there might be no more work ahead. So what I'm getting to is you might want to get an overview, a list, or a simple export to Excel of all the data within these tables. So these are database tables, all right, but the hierarchical nature makes it hard to get a flat list. So that's where I jumped in and created a custom business component, a simple list applet and a view based on the table that holds all this information. So you're looking at this custom view here. The custom view is available as part of the latest devpops release, which might not yet be at the time of this recording online on GitHub, but it will be. It's fairly straightforward to build if you know the table names, few joins here and there. And this is a flat list of all the information we have seen in the Siebel Web Tools view. Now you can query it. So let's query for the root object name using our workflow process example. And we can see that this workflow process has undergone a lot of changes. So there is, for example, some deactivations going on by Oracle, or there are new process properties in this case, or new step arguments. So there's a new child flag that I created that helps you identify these issues quickly, or new workflow step. So it's a flat list, so it doesn't allow you to apply any changes. However, you could make out, because I just used the column, the keep. So if somebody set the keep pre-existing value flag, it's stored in database. And for the information, you just can have it here in this queryable, searchable, sortable, and exportable list. So yeah, why not do an example export. And let's just, for the sake of demo, choose all rows, visible columns, and HTML. Of course, you can do any other format. This is 321 rows, and the table has opened in Excel, of course, if you have CSV, but the browser does a nice job as well. So you have all the information that you probably need to get an overview of what happened to this workflow that you have been customizing as well. And so you can do with any other standard object that you have been customizing. Not that there would be too many, I guess. You wouldn't have customized, or there wouldn't be an overlap of hundreds of standard objects that you have customized that are also touched during the repository upgrade. Depends on the area you work in. Order management, the 22.12 upgrade has a lot of interference, let's say, or some loyalty stuff, or life sciences is very often changed by Oracle. Other areas don't change that often. So this is another alternative, an alternative to doing SQL at the table. Just create a simple business component on top of the table, and then create a view. You can query, search, sort, and get all the data points you need to make the repository upgrade as smooth as possible. So now with the new feature from Oracle in 23.7, changes can be made. If you have analyzed your data, changes can be made pretty quickly by checking the box, clicking Apply Changes, and, well, then, of course, when you're done with the job, checkpoint and deliver the developer workspace. You still have to deliver it into, upstream, finally into your integration branch or into your main branch, where finally it has to, of course, land in the main branch, but you would probably use an integration workspace for testing purposes first. So for good measure, I went back to Siebel Tools and opened the workflow process editor after clicking Apply Changes. And indeed, the input argument step has changed back. And also the connector is now back connecting to my custom business service. So let's say from a standpoint of that SIF Attribute Differences view, I've done all I could to revert my customizations and merge them, quote unquote, back into the new standard version of the workflow. But however, the new standard could incur other actions that are beyond the scope of this demonstration. So you might choose not to just click the flag and hope everything's okay. You might choose to get more information and manually correct or merge, quote unquote, the new standard with your customization. So that is something you have to decide on depending on the amount and complexity of your customizations to these standard objects. So however you decide, you have to get it fixed either directly here in that developer workspace, or later, of course, by, overriding the changes, making additional customizations after delivering. So the delivery process, of course, is straightforward. I will just kick it off to show you one more feature. Once you click version on a developer workspace that had, basically exposes this feature because it is siebdevcli command line has been used to import SIF files. You can also do this manually, run siebdevcli, and you in a developer workspace do a batch import. And you will also be able to use this view on any arbitrary SIF import, but it has to be through siebdevcli. And once you click, or once you version or checkpoint such a workspace, you will get a message, resolve conflict using web tools. When done, click apply changes. Checkpointing the workspace disables the apply changes option. So you can no longer then use apply changes. That's fine. Let's do a quick note and version this. And then, of course, it goes all the way submitting. In this case, of course, the first submit for delivery prepares it to deliver into the automatically generated integration workspace, where, again, you can add additional developer workspaces underneath and do things you need to do. And, of course, let's finally deliver this. And of course, that kicks off and delivers, and then I'll spare this process. You have seen it multiple times and done it. You would then deliver into the integration workspaces you created for the purpose of the repository upgrade. In my case, int ru237. You would probably do some testing, and that int ru237 is either underneath main, but most probably underneath another integration workspace you use for integration testing purposes. So it goes all the CI/CD way, and that's good. So with this, we have seen the changes made to the MDE. The services management has improved with 23.7, and we have also seen a repository upgrade to 23.7 and seen the changes Oracle made to this process, as that the repository upgrade imports the SIF files using siebdevcli. The data is now written to tables in the underlying Siebel database, and that data is then accessible in the still editable development workspace in a hierarchical view we have seen, and you can check a flag and click apply changes to revert some changes, or you can, again, a little glimpse here, you can build a custom view on top of the table and create a view where you can have a list applet like this to search, sort, and export information. Of course, this is fully read-only. You don't want to mess with that data. Speaking of that data, let's quickly, at the end of this demo, head to Siebel Tools and take a look at the new tables. So, almost forgot. And those tables start with S_RTC. And there's one table that exists already for quite a long time. That's the RTC modified objects, which shows objects when modified within a workspace. And these two tables are new. The SRTC subobject and the SRTC object attributes, which is the main table that we have been looking at. So let's view some relationships. That's a nice feature in Siebel Tools. I always love to show off. A few people know. So you can see that the object attribute is indeed a child table with parent records in the sub-object. And that is actually a child of SRTC mod object. And you can double click and see that even further, where the modified objects have a foreign key to the workspace version, and workspace version, of course, has a foreign key to workspace. So you have SWorkspace, SWorkspace version, RTC modified objects. Let's go back down there. RTC subobject, the new table holding the parent records. That's basically the object level. And then we have a property or attribute level table. So, of course, there's interesting stuff in those tables, so check them out with simple select statements or as your favorite SQL tool, and then decide for yourself if you go for direct SQL for a export of the data so you can analyze it further, or creating a view such as I did. So with this, we're at the end of this demonstration. Thanks much for watching. Take care and bye-bye.